Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock of the EmeraldPlanet and EmeraldPlanet TV. We come to you on a week-to-week basis from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices, the technology, services, and products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we have a planet of 9 billion people by 2038 and possibly 12 to 13 billion by the end of this century, how are we going to be able to take care of all these people on planet Earth? And that's what Emerald Planet's all about. We come to you looking at the solutions, the best practices from around the globe as we create the Emerald Planet. Hello, welcome to the Emerald Planet. We're making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And seeing the long-term impacts of climate change. We're glad to have you. Thank you for being with us. Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you, as you heard before, on a week-to-week basis, looking around the globe for those best practices. And I have a gentleman sitting right beside me. This is Dr. Ming. He is a member of Board of Directors of the International Fund for China's Environment, IFCE. And welcome, Dr. Yang.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you. Tell us a little bit about the mission and vision of your organization, IFCE. And then we're going to get in to start talking about smog in China, which people all know about, but you're going to eliminate it so we don't have it anymore.
Thank you. The mission of the IFCE is to protect both Chinese environment and the global environment. Mm-hmm. For example, we would like to work to have a better environment worldwide, including climate change mitigation, global warming reduction, and biodiversity protection, land degradation neutrality, and waste and chemicals management. This is our mission.
Okay.
Our vision for the next 10 years is to become a champion worldwide in linking the US and China working together to address this kind of global environmental issue. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's really fantastic. And looking at the whole issue of smog, this is something that makes the world headlines constantly. But at the same time, what is heavy smog? Let's define that term, and then we're going to just see some pictures of what this actually looks like.
Definition of a heavy smog. There's a lot of definition. I think from my personal point of view, from my experience in China, whenever I perceive like a smog, I cannot see about 100 meters far away, I think that's a heavy smog already. In addition, whenever I expose this kind of smog, I feel very painful in my eyes. I also feel very difficult to breathe. So this is my perceive about the heavy smokes.
Yeah, and I think that's true of most Chinese. I've been to China a number of times, and the whole thing is that if you really can't see across the street, you really have heavy smog. But looking at it, what actually creates such smog as we're seeing in these photographs, where you can barely see the skyline?
There are quite a number of factors that cause this kind of smogs. For example, the primary factor is fossil fuel consumption. The combustion engine, combustion boilers, using fossil fuels like coal, oil, emit a lot of pollutants. Not only greenhouse gases like CO2, but also other pollutants like tiny dust and some.
That's what's called particulate matter.
Yeah.
Right.
And also some pollutants one cannot see actually. For example, carbon monoxide and the nitrogen dioxide, this kind of thing we cannot see, but that's very harmful for not only for the climate, but also for health. Yeah.
Now, looking at these cities, I mean, this really is, we're going to use this term heavy smog because you can barely see the skylines, even see the lights, you know, in many of these areas. So how does that actually impact the humans that live in this area as well as their pets? Because more and more Chinese are having pets, animals, you know, in their apartments. So it must be affecting them as well.
Of course, from my point of view, there are quite a number of ways this smog impact people. Firstly, psychologically, that's a huge impact on human beings. For example, personally, I was offered for a job to work in China, and very good, attractive salary, very good other conditions, working conditions, but I refused to take that job in Beijing because of the smog. I'm afraid that kind of air pollution will kill me earlier than I should be. So I refused that because this kind of psychological impact. Secondly, this smog really impacted people. I mean, create more people, poor healthy people to visit the hospitals because of this kind of lungs issues, for example, lung cancers. And this is a very big impact for China.
Now, looking at the whole thing as far as the heavy smog, the impact that you're just talking about on human beings, how does that affect as far as the youth that are in schools, K-12, kindergarten through high school, going into universities? How does that impact them as far as thinking about their future of staying in China or maybe even going abroad? Because now the Chinese, it's more open. They have world-class education. So really they could be almost anywhere on the planet. So how is this smog affecting the psychology of the youth as far as what they're going to do in the future?
Of course, as I mentioned, psychologically this impact will have a long-term impact for these people. For example, in the school where I was in there, I visited my friends' kids. They know this kind of situation. Whenever the smog comes, they will wear masks. But actually, these masks do not help. I mean, they know this, they know this situation, and they have in their mind that they will start it very hard and try to get education opportunities overseas, like in the US. So this is the kind of impact already. They tried very hard to get rid of that kind of a situation in China.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, so you have that. So about the workers that are in these factories, we have some smokestacks here. I mean, it's incredible the amount of pollution that's going up these stacks and out into the air. So how does that affect them on a day-to-day basis? And how does that impact them as far as their satisfaction even with their work?
I think that kind of air pollution improvement has a great impact already in China, and it dramatically improved air quality, reduced the number of days of smog in China. For example, in Beijing, I was in Beijing last October. I saw the air quality was very much better than before, than a few years ago. So that is, I think, is a benefit from this kind of air pollution reduction by this kind of technologies in factories. So yeah.
Well, but the whole thing about the workers that are working around in these areas, of course, most of them are actually living very near these factories and all that. So what is the interaction of the workers with their spouses, with their families, and it's from the standpoint of we're making a base for the future, is that you're seeing it today, and they're saying we can do better. I mean, this is the theme all across China.
Yes.
So what we're showing the worst right now, and we're going to show how you're actually working to help clean that up. But how does that really mobilizing people to say we can do better, and as Chinese, we want to live better?
Yes. Physically, personally, I worked in Tangshan City to work with some people in there. Basically, it's kind of a steel and iron production companies and factories, which were highly polluted. And I worked with the workers, as you mentioned. They were basically they were got used to that kind of situation already. So but we educated them, but they were happy. So they try to protect themselves. For example, get them educate their home family members. You know, in heavy smoke days, they shut up their windows. You know, this is kind of situation happened already. So basically, they know this situation. They get it, but they of course they try the best to improve. Yeah, right. I think that things are improving. Thank you.
Yeah, and the whole thing about it, I mean, this is Tiananmen Square, very beautiful area. This is kind of almost the anchor of China and all that, but you still see this smog everywhere. So as far as the general population, and this goes really back to IFCE, how is this actually helping you to promote the idea that we really can address smog, that we can eliminate smog across China, and that we need to work together as Chinese in order to do that?
Thank you. As I mentioned, in Beijing, the air quality has been dramatically improved. But this does not mean for other cities, like small cities or medium-sized cities, because Beijing had a very good policy to relocate this kind of pollutant factories, you know, outside of Beijing area.
They actually did that at the Olympics.
They did already.
And that was a tremendous change in Beijing and that whole area around Beijing.
But for other cities, like cities where I was born, this is another situation. People still use a lot of coal or oil or for this kind of smog production, you know. So this is the situation. So we need to still work hard and harder even for these cities to work with the government and the local community people to install the air pollution reduction facility or technologies there to reduce the pollutants.
We have a photograph here of a young lady that's walking across the street, smog all around. And so how is she thinking about this? Or what can you project as far as what she's saying is for my future, I want something different. For my children's future, I want something different, correct?
I believe her future after maybe 10 or 20 years, particularly for her children or younger generation, the situation will be much better. We believe this kind of air quality, air pollution will be improved. I mean, air pollution will be reduced. For example, the Chinese government has put a high priority in air quality improvement, in GHG emission reductions, and they have particularly several steps. For example,
well, we were running out of time. So what do you see as far as IFCE improving the air quality, and you need to do that in about 15 seconds?
I think we will continue engaging the U.S. Government and U.S. people, technology and stakeholders to work in China to transfer their technologies and their knowledge in China to help the Chinese people work together with the U.S. government and U.S. people and the technology transfer.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Dr. Young, thank you very much as we create the Emerald Planet.
Thank you. My pleasure.